Whether people like it or not, they are respected. And they themselves command respect. Because recently, politicians had manipulated them. Many people today regret having marched alongside the politicians.
Excellencies, the fight against terrorism is affecting our social fabric with suspicions of communal exaltation. Living together is threatened by a right. How can we get Burkinabés to reconnect with core values such as solidarity, civic-mindedness, and social cohesion?
I think these values are coming back on their own. On the contrary, the war has also led people to understand many things, and people are starting to unite more. You know, social inequalities create more problems for social cohesion than terrorism does. There were too many social inequalities. I used to tell some people, I said, listen, you've had enough to eat. How are you going to sit down with someone who hasn't eaten at all and talk about social cohesion? It's not possible. It's the same situation I just mentioned to you. We must try as much as possible to bring people to a certain level. As long as there is wealth, it should be well distributed. That's the first step. When it comes to abuses and everything else, we need to be careful. There are a lot of people who have made allegations. Just recently, when we saw the case in Solenzo, they released images, talked and talked. We didn't say anything, we kept calm. When they finished talking, we showed the truth. The civilians who claimed that the forces had killed were actually transported here to Ouagadougou and put in safety. If they were killed, why are they in Ouagadougou? How did they end up in Ouagadougou? Often, it's done deliberately. They make up whatever they want with their NGOs, their media and all that. But we let it go. When they're done, we show the truth. That's it. The terrorists did use civilians as human shields, that's true. But the forces were able to tell the difference. And after the fighting, they gathered the civilians from Solenzo. We sent the necessary resources to transport them here, and they were presented in front of everyone. There were hundreds of civilians. They gave their testimony. So we need to be careful about the stories told by certain people who just want to push their own theories. And their goal is to divide us. But we must not fall into that trap. Everyone needs to understand that we must fight for our homeland. We made it clear, you know. I spoke with the union leaders. I gathered them here. I spoke to them at a certain point in our history. But I was disappointed afterwards. So I told them, either you are Burkinabé or you are not Burkinabé. So the standoff began. But afterwards, we decided to meet with them again because we assumed they had understood the message. And even then, I won't lie, when they came, they still wanted to understand and started displaying certain behaviors. The measures we take, it doesn't work. The country is at war, we have to do everything for the country. This imported unionism, that's not real unionism. There are even some who boast about having participated in the fall of Sankara. And it's them who started everything, and so on. Do you think that's a good thing? The Westerners manipulate you and you keep acting just the way they want. That's not unionism. A union fights for the interests of the workers. But most of the time, what the leaders really want is to come and share in the spoils with those in power. And people stay silent. No. Listen, we have a lot of files on a lot of, not just the unionists. In society, we have a lot of files. People who approached us at the beginning, who wanted favors, who wanted things we refused, who then turned away, who left, who talk. We have their files. So healthy unionism. There are a lot of actions that we have taken. We didn't wait for people to take to the streets to act. When I was talking about daycare workers, it wasn't someone who came to tell us that there were workers who had been let go and needed to have their rights restored. We saw a case and decided that their rights needed to be restored. We told the finance ministers, find the necessary funds to resolve this. The people from City Hall, the Green Brigade, those who work, they had months of back pay owed to them. For these people, those who are out of work, people weren't fighting for them before. No one came to us to say, hey, the women are sweeping branches at my place. It was one of my men who brought it up once. They said, it's been months like this, and so on, with their work. I looked into it, and he told me it was true. I said, as soon as we can, we need to make up for everything they've missed. Some of them had several, even dozens of months of back pay owed. We pulled out the files and decided to make up for all of that. So, we need to practice unionism. If there's a problem, people should come to us and explain it. If we can solve it, we'll tell you we can do it. If we can't, we'll tell you, for now we can't, but we'll be able to do it in a certain amount of time. But if there's a problem, we gather the media and speak however we want. I hope they'll find a solution with you. Otherwise, if after that you don't come to us anymore, I want us to work in an African way. When there's a problem at home, we sit down, we talk, and we have to be truthful. What we can do, we must say clearly, we can do this. What we can't do, we'll also tell you that we can't. Now, if you don't want to, everyone does what they can, but we have to be responsible. There is no problem that cannot be solved. And as I always say, always act with the interests of the nation in mind. That is very important. So we resume the dialogue as we do with everyone. We haven't broken off dialogue with anyone. Everyone is welcome here.
Mr. President, if the goal is to further ease the burden on households and improve consumers' purchasing power, perhaps we should look at SONAB, the National Bunyave Hydrocarbons Company, which you found to be running a deficit at the end of 2022 and which is now practically flush with cash because it has become the champion among state-owned companies. That's half of the profits made by state-owned companies in 2024. Shouldn't we now lower the price of fuel?
All right, thank you. I think that's a question people might ask themselves. It's very good, we've made progress, but when did we break even and start making profits? What did we do? That's very important to understand. And the other thing is, don't these profits contribute to something else? For the benefit of the people. Let me give you an example. We are currently setting up road construction brigades in every region. You see our road network? Even what already exists is in poor condition, even the RN one. If you leave from here all the way to the Kokolowo area, it's completely deteriorated. That means we have a significant need for investment in this sector. Road infrastructure. And SONAB must play a major role. I've just assigned it this new mission because the fuel that will supply the different brigades, even the bitumen and all that, SONAB will have to take care of it. If we slow down, the pace will slow down. But do you want us to move quickly or not? And there's also a question of, I wouldn't call it comparison. You see, fuel is cheaper in Burkina than in some coastal countries. We go get the fuel over there, transport it all the way to Burkina, but it's still cheaper compared to those countries. Can you explain that? If we were to raise it to their level, we would have a lot of protests, and I can even tell you that we could pave a lot more roads than we think. But we always keep it like this because we want to move quickly. Today we really have to thank the people and the friends of Burkina Faso. A lot of people contribute, for example, like Mbom, to beautify the cities, to build roads and all that. At a certain point, the government also started by funding, but we will have to keep funding so that the pace continues. So it's a symbiosis between us and the people. And I think that if they understand the effort we're making, where their money is going, people need to realize that we can stay on this path. When we reach a certain goal, we'll be able to lower it. That's only logical. No one wants to be rich and have their children live in poverty, if I can put it that way. So the wealth will be shared, but we are behind, and we have to catch up. Right now, for example, I was telling you that we can't keep paying for military equipment. We need to produce it ourselves. And to produce, you need to build factories. You won't go somewhere to ask for a loan to build a factory of that kind. No, no one will give you that. Even the equipment that makes up the factories themselves, no one will sell it to you. So that's something that has to be done internally. There are many things we do, and you won't be given a loan for that. And look at all this equipment. Just think about how many billions it costs. It's not someone's loan, it's taxpayers' money. So these are things we ourselves wanted in order to move quickly. Do you think that if I had a 200 billion loan in 2023, I would equip all of Burkina Faso in 2023? But no one wants to give you loans for that kind of thing. So in the end, it's the people's money. That equips the people. So there are many areas where we do it ourselves. And so that requires at least a minimum of sacrifice. When we reach that level, don't be surprised. As soon as we feel that, yes, we can do it, we will do it.
So, Your Excellency, in the infrastructure sector with SONAB Faso Mebo, as well as in industries with Faso Kosam, the tomato factories, SM Sosiko, and the mines, the state is becoming more and more involved. Isn't the state starting to take the place of the private sector?
That's a very good question. Well, you have to make a choice. That's one thing. And another thing is, you shouldn't see it that way. The private sector still has its areas of activity, but you need to have the ability to adapt. There are things that should be handled by the state, but then it's private again. Why is that? Well, we don't have elections to finance. We don't have accounts to open elsewhere to secure anything. None of that interests us. So our relationship with the private sector is becoming healthier and healthier. Everyone does what they're supposed to do, pays the taxes they're supposed to pay, and we always tell them to adapt. When it comes to the mining sector, I gathered the operators and told them, invest in the mines. Many didn't understand. At least one of them started investing, and I think I recently met him at the university. And I told him that I was the one who opened his eyes, that he didn't know there was money to be made there. For him, it's all about import-export. You're just sending our foreign currency out of the country. And the people aren't working. That's just one example. So he's starting to change a little. As for me, the Minister of Agriculture, you remember, he held sessions in Bobo. He gathered the business operators when we wanted to launch the Bagre poles and all that, the revival of activity, the offensive. But I can tell you today, no one has invested. I said, okay, I had a report made on the results of the offensive. Since we're now in 2025, the minister is... The share that private investors were supposed to take to invest in our growth hubs, I asked them which private investors were able to invest in the land and all that. They said no one. It was those who were already involved in bankruptcy products, those things we actually encouraged. The cooperatives, they were the ones who continued. But the major operators, I told them there was no one. They said, okay, very well. Don't be surprised if tomorrow I say no one will take money to send abroad to pay for imported rice. You invest to grow rice. You have to know how to change. You have to know how to adapt to the ideology of those in power. So the private sector will always have something to do, but you have to adapt to the context. Because if we leave everything to the private sector, there will be no country. That's what was already happening. When you look at the CCVA, which one of you doesn't have a vehicle that gets inspected? Do you dare take your car and drive without an inspection, huh? Technical inspection? The police will stop you, right? Who are the police? It's the people who pay, it's those who are mandated by the people to do this policing. If the police have to check vehicles to force you to get a technical inspection, and that structure belongs to a private company, has been privatized, the money, I would say, is basically free, privatized. Do you think that's normal? Sociocos was privatized. Many companies have been privatized. But this could bring in money for the state, and the state is supposed to work for everyone. If you privatize everything, then what do? Where does the state get its money from? Don't we want to build our country? Do we just want to stay like this, in the situation we're in now? No, we want to build. We want to produce. We want everyone to live well and in peace. We want to see our children in different kinds of schools. We want our country to develop. And for that, the state must be responsible and take charge in certain areas. Even the mining sector, we are in the process of buying it back. The first two mines that we decided to buy back, it's not that we took them away, we bought them back. And as you saw, it's nearly 100 billion. But it was the state that paid to buy back these mines. And now it's us, we are the ones operating them. And that's how we'll keep doing it. Even the shares I said we would take, we are going to buy back those shares. The state needs to be strong. If the state isn't strong, you don't have a country. You shouldn't fool yourself about that. Capitalism can only be ruthless. If you let capitalism develop to a certain level, in the end, you'll lose yourself. If you set up an industry right away to manufacture I don't know what, your goal is to make a profit. At first, you might set up a factory that employs maybe 500 people. And gradually, you automate. In the end, your factory only has 10 people left. There's a computer doing the work. The other 490 are unemployed. We are against that system. We regulate as well. Of course, things are digitalized, but we're against a certain level of robotization. So we have an ideology that we will implement gradually, but people need to adapt to this ideology. It's for everyone's well-being. Otherwise, we'll end up in very uncomfortable situations. Why do we absolutely have to learn their way of doing economics? Aren't we capable of creating? Is it God who came down again, as I like to say? To create, to bring people together, to create schools? These are people who created concepts and who created schools. It was human beings who created schools. So they were the ones who set up the programs and so on. The curriculum in the United States is different from the one in France, different from the one in England, and so on. Each country has its own way of teaching its people to reach the level they want. So we too are going to create our own model. In fact, that's what puts us behind. Unfortunately, our school model isn't good. We took it from others, we adapt it, and in the end, what are we actually producing? Okay, we train a lot of economists with this approach. But does it work? Does it really work? All right, we're in the process of changing the system. Are we making any progress or not? That's the question. That's the whole question. He talked about the MBA, about various things. There are dams that have been damaged for decades, made of sand or whatever. This season, the water is inside. It's thanks to our system. When we manage to restore these dams, people can produce during the rainy season. They can produce all year round, and they're very happy. They also have drinking water through the Onya, thanks to these dams, for drinking. And we're going to keep going like this. Should we do this? Or should we just sit back and say, no, everything should be for the private sector? And first of all, this issue of the private sector, there are people who still have a backward political mentality. And we told people to change. You followed the statements of some ministers closely. Okay, we give you a project, you take the advance payment for starting work and everything, and then you do whatever you want. We give you a project in Bafum, and in the contract you're supposed to finish by May so that the farmers can access Bafum and start cultivating. You take your advance and just wander around, doing whatever you please. In April, we come by, we look, you haven't done anything. You say, no, 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 you're going at your own pace. That's how it is. We force you, you finish the Bafum project. There are some who work at night, even now, to meet the objectives. It's not that they can't do it, but it's a mindset. And as long as the private sector has this mindset, it's not going to work. I've told you that we're nearly 1,000 years behind. We have to catch up. We're still in the 1800s. We need to make up for lost time, but we can't keep going with this mindset. So we're encouraging people to change and adapt. You're talking about yogurts, for example. Is the market is saturated? We import. I would like to see private companies get into the yogurt business so that we no longer have to import. We have enacted regulations stating that when something is produced in Burkina Faso, you need a special import permit to be able to import it. This means you have to buy what's available locally first. Only when there is a shortage are you then allowed to import. That's so that people get involved. You can see that many private companies are opening factories and all that. If we didn't use this method, how would we manage? There's the big Faso mill that's already there, but we need to restructure all of that. But at the same time, we've required the major importers to open mills as well. I myself attended the inauguration last time on the other side. He's one of the biggest importers. When we said we were going to suspend imports, he wasn't happy. He tried everything, but we said that's what we're going to do. Either you adapt or the state will step in. They're doing it, but are we able to meet the demand? There's room for it. We have the population, we have a large market, an immense market in Burkina and in Africa, but people just need to adapt, to produce. So there will always be room. Don't think that we've necessarily taken the place of the private sector. No.
You're going to forget the ways of.
Yes, it's necessary to regulate because there's this mentality of always causing speculation among certain people. No, it's dangerous. Recently, you followed the case with the motorcycles. Unfortunately, it was only when the situation happened that we realized it wasn't even a regular market. So quickly, we had to see how we could regulate this market so that imports could be monitored. How can someone go import motorcycles and then tell you they don't have a purchase invoice? Since the ministry needs the purchase invoice to see everything you've paid in customs duties and so on, and to set a margin that must not be exceeded. He says he doesn't have an invoice, so he goes to buy, comes back, sets whatever price he wants, and resells to the public. No, he gets richer while others get poorer. And generally, when people get rich, what do? If they used to drink Burkina here, now they don't drink Burkina anymore, they're after champagne. It's money going out. If they used to drive, say, a small car, now they're looking for a V8. The fuel that's subsidized by the state, there it is. That's money going out. So we need to think about the economy. What are we doing? We must not let foreign currency leave the country. You say you want the currency, and you want us to keep behaving like this. We can't keep behaving like this. That's why the state is taking back control. If tomorrow people come to an agreement, they've tried to blackmail us, haven't they? When we tried to tighten things up a bit at customs, some people told us that if we did that, there would be a rice shortage. I said, okay, Go ahead and create a rice shortage. You'll see what we'll do. If tomorrow some people want to collude to create a rice shortage, then it's necessary for the state to take charge of rice imports. We're ready for anything. People need to change their mindset. Go easy, look out for your own interests, no matter how small, but also allow other Burkinabés to live and not to impoverish them.
Mr. President, we saw you in Lumbila with the women farmers, supporting and assisting them. But beyond that, what are you doing to provide even more income-generating opportunities for the women of Burkina who drive the small-scale economy in neighborhoods and villages?
Very good, and that's one of the most important points. I even told the Ministry of Humanitarian Action, which deals with women's issues, to refocus their efforts, not just on providing assistance, but on creating jobs and small businesses. Women have many qualities. Look at the small-scale processing of our consumer products. Women are very capable of doing this. They are much more patient than men. And they know how to do certain things better than men. We need to encourage them to do so. I went to Tenkodogo myself and I saw women making their preferred couscous, which is good for strength, the liquid soap they produce, and so on. I gave instructions for us to purchase the liquid soap from all these women who have been trained and who managed to make liquid soap for our administrations. Everything here is imported, even in your own offices. All the liquid soaps are imported, aren't they? That's not right, because we don't make it ourselves. And when I said to do it, at one point I thought, no, they don't have a formal structure. I said, I won't understand anything. Find a way, it's their soap, you pay and you bring it in. I think it's just a matter of packaging. Even if you bring it to my office in recycled jugs, like those used for drinking water, I'll use it. It's not a big deal. In the meantime, that's just how it is. If we want luxury, let's accept our realities, transform what we need and consume that.